Even you're beyond like taking the piss out of me with it. It's just
I've not
ridiculous.
Almost like you, I'm fed up of the whole saga. I've not read into any of the articles about it or stuff. I read the RFL statement about taking the membership off. It's what would normally happen to a club in these circumstances. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how it plays out for the league's perspective in terms of how many points deducted and that sort of situation.
Well, a lot of that hangs on how much the new owner comes in and actually pays the old creditors off by. So it's between 6 and 12, but I think that is contingent on the amount of debt that they pay and clear. So we'll see.
Okay, let's move on.
Yes, we will. Super League side and Challenge Cup holders Hull FC have signed halfback Albert Kelly from their city rivals Kingston Rovers on a 1-year deal. The 25-year-old Australian moved to Yorkshire in 2015 after spells with the Cronulla Sharks and the Gold Coast Titans. Kelly was Rovers' Player of the Year in 2015, but could not help the Robins to avoid relegation to the Championship via the £1 million game last season. He becomes Hull FC's fourth close season signing. I think I might bring a bit more sting in attack, and I think there's a bit of excitement for the fans as well, Kelly told the club website. It was pretty exciting to see Hull go to Wembley and win the Challenge Cup. Some of my good mates were in there, and to see them smiling and lifting the trophy is something I want to do as well. And elsewhere at Hull FC, Australian outside back Steve Michaels has signed a new 1-year deal with the club.
Yeah, that last bit you had on makes sense. The Kelly thing, I suppose it all boils down to how well he reacts to not being first choice.
Yeah.
Because we've seen him react to not being happy with situations by not turning up or not behaving in a way that he should behave in with the club. The Rovers in the qualifiers, which did not help their plight in the last two crucial games that they had to play in that tournament. I'd hate for that sort of attitude to infect the Hull FC dressing room, but he is an exciting attacking player occasionally.
Let's see how he does.
If he manages to make those occasions every one of the handful of games he gets, then that'll be okay.
Is he not in the starting 13 for you at Hull? No. Is he not playing alongside Sneyd?
No, not at all.
So who is?
Tumavarvi. That worked fairly well in the middle of last season. If you work on Tumavarvi's weaknesses, I think you've got a more complete player than if you work on Albert Kelly's weaknesses.
Do you not think they'll want to get Tumavarvi back in the centres, though?
No, because they've signed two centres. Connor and Griffin. And they only needed to sign one centre, and they've signed two. So I think that's covered.
We'll see. Yeah. We shall see. Okay, Catalan Dragons have re-signed prop Mikhail Simon on a 2-year deal from Wakefield Trinity. Simon is 29, scored 2 tries in 65 games for the Dragons before moving to Bellevue in 2015, where he made 44 appearances. He joined Sam Mower, Greg Bird, Ian Thornley, Luke Burgess, Luke Walsh and Braden Williami, thank you, at the Stad Gilbert Brutus for 2017. I'm delighted to come back at the club who allowed me a few years ago to turn my passion into a career, he said. I want to show my determination to win and be part of a team who will compete for a trophy. Look, he's obviously got roots in, Catalonia in the south of France, but for anybody, I think Mikhail Simon is a good signing, really, given the season he had last year.
They're getting a better player than the player that left them. Yeah, I would say, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think he played really well for Wakefield last year. I can see that they're not too chuffed with seeing him leave, which again makes sense.
No, you wouldn't want to lose him, would you?
I think he's a decent player, and something that I was worried about Catalan with. I am worried about Catalan with the amount of changeover in their squad for a second year in a row. I think it's going to be destabilising to an extent, but bringing someone like this back in helps fill some of the void of the passion that you would lose with people like Pelissier, Elmer, what's his...
Navarrete.
No, I was thinking more regulars. The guy retired. The captain. Muniz. So players like that who have been woven into the fabric of the club, to bring someone back who's experienced but has that fight, that passion for the club, I think is a good move for them. So it makes their recruitment seem a little bit more well-rounded to what they've lost.
Yeah, very much so. Right, back to Hull FC. Hull FC forward Frank Pritchard has joined NRL side Parramatta Eels on a 1-year contract. Pritchard joined the Black and Whites from Canterbury on a 2-year deal back in 2015, making 26 appearances last term. The 33-year-old, who started his career with Penrith, has represented Samoa and New Zealand at international level. Hull had won the Challenge Cup last season and made the Super League playoffs with Pritchard in tow, losing to Wigan in the semi-finals. How much of a miss is this going to be for Hull?
I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know what you think.
I'm not so sure it's the biggest deal in the world for them, to be honest. But he was impact and he was exciting and he sold shirts, but I think he's... At 33, Frank Pritchard is not 27-year-old Frank Pritchard, and I think he's eminently replaceable.
I think...
In terms of on-field production.
Yeah, I think it's the off-field stuff they might miss. It seemed like he brought a sort of relaxed, positive, we can do it kind of mentality into the dressing room that he seemed to be one of the figures that maybe led that sort of change in attitude and stuff as a senior player in the squad, but also the way he seems to present himself on, interviews and stuff like that. You get the feeling that he's both determined and relaxed in equal measure. So I think on that side of things it's a miss for Hull FC, but then now they've got people who've got experience of winning and that sort of thing, so maybe there's people who can fill that void. Yeah,
and he still had a year left to run on his contract, didn't he? So it was good that Hull were able to see a way to let him go, and it's obvious that he's either had the offer from Parramatta and thought, I'll go back home, or perhaps, as you might expect in some circumstances, he's come halfway around the world, transplanted his family from Australia to Hull, and hasn't quite settled and hasn't found it quite so easy going. So fair play to the guy. You come over and you give it a try, and he's carried himself with great dignity, and he was an asset for the club, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think his 1-year spell will be obviously remembered very fondly.
Yeah, they were big fans, weren't they? Right, St Helens captain John Wilkin and prop Kyle Amor have signed new contracts with the Super League club. Wilkin is 33, moved to the Saints in 2002 and has won 7 trophies with them since then, and has agreed a 2-year deal. The former Leeds and Wakefield prop forward Amor, who is 29, helped St Helens win the grand final in his 2014 debut season, has now signed a 3-year deal with the club. I'm delighted that both players have agreed to stay with us, said head coach Kieran Cunningham. They're integral to what we do here and provide leadership and professionalism to the young players in the group. John Wilkin is 33.
Yeah.
There you go.
Did you think he was older?
I was surprised that he was only 33, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's been given a 2-year deal. But if they're happy with what he keeps dishing up for them... the leadership along with the penalty.
Well, that's it. And
welcomed, obviously, on the field. But Kyle Amor, I think it's a no-brainer to tie him up.
I don't know, a 10-year deal, mate.
Because he's been so good in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And overshadowed a little bit by maybe a bit more bombastic kind of style of Walmsley, who maybe puts a few more people on their arse and gets a few more offloads away. But Amor has been far steadier in that time. I remember at the start of this year, I was worried a little bit that he'd lost something in defence, maybe, I don't know.
Right. Plus at that time,
his lateral movement didn't seem to be as good, and when he was making contact, when he was carrying the ball, he seemed to not drive into contact.
Yeah.
Whatever was going on then, he sorted out because he was as good a prop as there was in the competition in the final 2 months.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for St Helens to secure him long term.
Yeah, it can't be overstated what he brings to that team when you've got, and you're speaking of, flashy, more bombastic players, you've got, guys like Vega around him and...
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore, but at that time, you had, these guys. He's steady away would be to do him a disservice, wouldn't it? He's just Mr. Consistent every single week. He puts that, 120 to 130 metres up every single week.
Yeah.
And, I remember him getting an absolute barnstorming try against Catalan in the home game midway through the season. Knock your boy out of the way.
There was the one against Wigan as well, where he got the spill off where Tompkins was laid out and then he picked it up. Scored.
I don't recall that one quite as well. There you go. Okay, and finally, Rugby League star Luke Menzies has been handed a tryout in Scotland from the World Wrestling, well, I remember it as the World Wrestling Federation, but it's from WWE. During the WWE's visit to Scotland, English Rugby League player Luke Menzies was invited to the WWE tryout. Menzies is 28, whose former clubs include Hull, Kingston Rovers and the Salford Red Devils, was one of more than 30 athletes to be sought out by the WWE. So they obviously see rugby as and other professional sports as a potential goldmine for, or at least a well to be plumbed for talent. Did you see as
unhinged physical entertainers?
Well, that's it. But we've got Vido.
Yeah, well,
had a crack at. There was that German footballer. There was a German goalkeeper called Timo Weiss who used to play for Stuttgart, I believe. He played for Germany in a World Cup. He now is in the WWE as well. Hench as fuck. Yeah. And yeah, I love it.
It is funny. It is amusing. Obviously, no one thinks Menzies has much to offer on the field then.
No.
He didn't get much of a go at Salford, did he?
No. But if he gets in the WWE, he'll make some brass.
Yeah.
He'll make some money doing that. What would your wrestler name be, Mark, do you think?
I've never.
Did you never play wrestling when you were a kid?
No. Not really my scene.
Fair enough. Okay. No problem.
Go on, what was your wrestler name?
Saucy Pete.
Oh, we had this before.
We've had this conversation, that's why it was trying to find out yours. Yeah, Saucy Pete. So, yeah.
Saucy.
I'd have been like a tugboat-esque kind of wrestler. Right, there you go. That's the news from around the world of rugby league.
See, I was thinking that the show...
Fuck me, Dad. Will you stop interrupting?
I was thinking the show name was going to have something to do with like administrations and stuff like that. But now I'm thinking it's got to be something to do with Saucy Pete.
The return of Saucy Pete. There you go. Right, well, Saucy Pete now and Mark take a look at the third round and final of the Four Nations. Okay, so the Four Nations is all done and dusted now, but we'll bring you up to speed. So we'll go back to round 3 of the competition, and last Friday night up in Workington, where Scotland, plucky Scotland, took on the Kiwis and drew 18 all.
Undoubted best, most...
Fabulous.
Most, best game of the series in ways because of...
Yeah.
Well, it's memorable. The result, Scotland became the first team outside of the big three to take any points in the Four Nations.
Yeah. And it came against New Zealand. And it was a brilliant, brilliant game as well. Scotland were value for having been in front. They were leading 12-6 with about 6 minutes to go. Jared Beale put on a quick double to put what you thought would be the Kiwis out of sight. And up stepped Ewan Aitken to say no thank you, and Danny Brough did the last bit of work and tied up the scores. Danny Brough, though, from a man who'd missed everything that he'd tried the week previously, was laser like with the boot, and it was just phenomenal, their attitude across the park. And I'm not crediting Scotland with, how do I put this? As far as I'm concerned, this is a legitimate result. And it's nothing to do with, the changing rooms weren't very nice, and Cymru's a long way away, we're a bit tired. Scotland legitimately beat a team of exceptionally talented professional rugby league players who should be 9 out of 10 times, 95 times out of 100 beating them, and this is a phenomenal result and should be something that Scottish Rugby League parlay into further success for themselves. It was 6-4 to New Zealand at half time, and obviously 18 all to finish with. Tries for New Zealand came from David Fussy Tuabag 2 for Beale, and also the goals being kicked by Isaac Luke. For Scotland, the tries came from Lewis Tierney, Ben Helliwell. What a great try Ben Helliwell was.
Amazing
try, dummy. And then Ewan Aitken.
And the commentary on it as well from his club coach.
Hendo, yeah. So one of the Hendersons giving it a good... Well, there's a Henderson everywhere you go, isn't there?
It's Andrew Henderson.
I know, but there's millions of them. There's... Three.
Yeah.
There you go. And Danny Brough kicking the goals. What did you make of this one?
Well, I didn't catch the full game live, but I got in for the last 50 minutes. It was my nephew's birthday. And then, it was so exciting when I got in and saw the score, and then watched. I got in just before the first of the 2 Beale tries, and
Right.
they were great tries as well. I mean, that second one, the ball movement in those conditions at a pressure time was absolutely vintage Kiwi.
Yeah.
But then Scotland being able to answer back with Ewan Aitken's try, and it was so exciting. Yeah, and then I caught most of the game the next day, and